Hello, sports fans. My name is Mark Mortier from Yesterday Sports. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment. But first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by hand writing relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique, budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched in words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved ones this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
All right, welcome everybody to this week's first episode. This episode's dropping on February 19th. And then we will be dropping a second episode this week, which is part 2 of this episode, on Tuesday the 22nd. And then we'll drop another episode on Sunday, February 26th as well. So, we're going to be doing a little tribute to the Negro League baseball players and leagues. MLB The Show 23 set to drop next month, and they have legends in the game for the Negro Leagues this year, being Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Buck O'Neil, Rube Foster, Hilton Smith, Hank Thompson, and John Donaldson and Martiín Dihigo. All 8 of those players have been confirmed to be in the game, and I assume that there's probably going to be more. So with the presentation of that being going on, plus I feel like the Negro Leagues don't get to talk about as often as they should. So I figure I might as well just bring some things to life as well. So this episode we're gonna talk about 4 of those 8 legends. We're gonna talk about Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Martiín Dihigo, and John Donaldson. Basically, give you a little brief overview. You know how we do talk about players and break down their careers, give you a little insight to the background, to the history that some might not know about. And then next week we'll do the next episode we'll do the other 4, which will be Buck O'Neil, Rube Foster, Hilton Smith, and Hank Thompson. And then the third episode that we'll be dropping, I'm going to talk about an overview of the Negro Leagues, because there just wasn't one. There was actually 7 major leagues that Major League Baseball recognizes for stats, and then there was other smaller leagues that they consider minor leagues. And then we're going to discuss about how they actually made money during this time. A lot of these players were barnstorming, and by that means that they were going around the country playing baseball, earning money. They were playing against. What's funny is what's ironic. I wouldn't say funny, but what's ironic is even though they weren't allowed to play in the major leagues, they were still playing against white players that played in the major leagues on these barnstorming trips, and they would play against the All-Stars, such as Babe Ruth's All-Stars or Dizzy Dean's All-Stars or Bob Feller's All-Stars. So they would play against these All-Star teams as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't have a did you know or on this date for this episode, so I feel like all of these 3 episodes is a giant did you know for some, and for me it even enlightened my eyes doing the research on it. As always, the stats are provided by baseballreference.com, not a sponsor but should be, and also provided by Wikipedia as well as their baseball wiki page, which you can also find through baseballreference.com as well. So let's get right into it, shall we? The first player we're going to talk about today is Leroy Satchel Paige. He was born July 7th in 1906 in Mobile, Alabama. He would make his debut in the Negro National League in 1927 with the Birmingham Black Barons. He would go 7-2 through 9 games, started 10, appeared in 20, or through 98 innings, I should say. He started 10 games and appeared in 20. He did have 4 saves with Birmingham as well. He did go 36-17 during his time with them. He had a 2.9 in the 4 seasons he was with. He had a 2.93 ERA, appeared in a total of 86 games. 51 of those games he started. Through 36 complete games, he had 6 shutouts, and he had 8 saves, and this is all overthrowing 491 innings. He also had a 4.72, or no, sorry, his strikeout to walk ratio was a 4.54, and his K per 9 was 8.7. He would then go on to play in 1931 with the Cleveland Cubs, and he would go 1-1 with a 2.3 ERA, appearing in 5 games. He had 36 games started. He completed 2 of them, and he threw 25.1 innings. So, and then he would go on to play for the Pittsburgh Crawfords as well, and he would be from 31 to 41. 1931 and 1941, he played 3 recorded seasons with the Pittsburgh Crawfords. During that time, he went 25-10. He started 36 games, completed 30 games. He had 7 shutouts, 2 saves, threw 296 innings. He had 301 strikeouts. His strikeouts per 9 was 9.2. And then he has a strikeout to walk ratio was a 4.07. Now, a strikeout to walk ratio is basically how many strikeouts they have per walk. So, and then strikeouts per 9 is basically if they pitch 9 innings, how many strikeouts would they average during those 9 innings? Then 1941 to 47, Satchel would play for the Kansas City Monarchs and the New York Black Yankees, the Memphis Red Sox, and during this time, Satchel was 34 to 40 years old. He would go 31-22 with a 2.18 ERA. He appeared in 86 games, started, and then he went. He would go 79-20 during this time, and he would have 4 shutouts and 1 save. He did throw 441 pitches as a 34 to 40-year-old. He had 401 Ks, and his strikeout per 9 was 8.2, and his strikeout per walk was 4.41. So his strikeouts, as he got a little bit older, went down, his strikeouts per 9, but his strikeout to walk ratio definitely got better as it went up. And then in 1948, Satchel finally was able to play in the major leagues, playing in 48 and 49 seasons with the Cleveland Guardians, or Indians at the time, and he appeared in 21 games. He had an ERA of 2.48. He would go 6-1. He had 13 with 3 complete games, 2 shutouts, and 1 save. He pitched 72.2 innings. He had a 5.3 K per 9. His strikeouts per walk was 1.95 during that 48 season. That 48 season was also the year they won the World Series, and he was on the pitching staff with Bob Feller. 1949, he would go 4-7 with a 3.04 ERA. Appeared in 31 games, starting 5. He had 83 innings pitched. He had 54 Ks. He had a 5.95 Ks per 9, and he had a 1.64 strikeouts to walk. So basically, at this point, he was being used as a reliever and not as a starter. And he did make relief appearances in 48. In fact, he did make a relief appearance in the 1948 World Series, which made him the first black player ever to play in a World Series. From 51 to 53, he would play for the St. Louis Browns, where he would earn 2 All-Star Games appearances at age 45 and 46. Of the 3 seasons with the Browns, he would go 18 and 23. He had a 3.57 ERA. He had 126 appearances. He had 13 games started. He had 3 complete games, 2 shutouts. He had 27 saves. He had 317.1 innings pitched during this time. And mind you, he is mid-40s at this time. He had a 5.4 Ks per 9, and his strikeout to walk ratio was a 1.52. Satchel would go on to make his last appearance in 1965 at the age of 58 with the Kansas City Athletics, and he gave up 1 hit and struck out 1, and it was the last game that he officially started. So obviously you can't get all of Satchel's career into a podcast, as well as with many of these other great legends here. Can't get them all into a podcast, so it's because it would just. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from them, but at the same time, I want to give them their. I don't want to take anything away, but I also do want to give knowledge about all the athletes, all the players and contributors for the Negro Leagues through the next 3 podcasts, and then we'll probably end up having to expand more just to continue to further develop the repertoire of just how impactful the Negro Leagues were when they couldn't when black athletes couldn't play with the whites in the major leagues. His list of accomplishments included, but not limited to, like I said, being the oldest player ever throw in a Major League Baseball game. He was a 2-time MLB All-Star, World Series champ. He was a Negro League World Series champ as well. And like I said, he was the first black pitcher ever to pitch in the World Series when he pitched in Game 5. He played all over, from North Dakota to Cuba to Puerto Rico to New York to California. He played with Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell, Jackie Robinson, Bob Feller, Dizzy Dean. He made a majority of his money barnstorming, and so a lot of his career numbers aren't exactly all there. And it was said, though, Joe DiMaggio, for instance, said Satchel was the best ever he had ever faced as a pitcher. And Bob Feller even said he was the best he ever saw. And Hack Wilson said the ball looked like a marble when it crossed the plate. And Dizzy Dean would go on to say that Paige's fastball made his look like a changeup. So Paige was elected in 1971 to the Baseball Hall of Fame by the Negro League Committee. In 2006, a statue of Satchel Paige was unveiled at Cooper's Park in Cooperstown, New York. However, there is no record of Satchel Paige ever facing Babe Ruth. So, this is legend number 1, and it starts off with a mighty big feat. I mean, Satchel Paige pretty much did it all, and he gets overshadowed just because there wasn't, like I said, Satchel Paige is known in the baseball world, obviously, but he still gets overlooked. He's probably not one of the most overlooked players on this out of these 8, but there are a lot of players that are overlooked from the Negro Leagues, like I said, because of just there wasn't the media coverage, and a lot of the coverage was lost due to, things of burning down newspapers or just destroying that heritage or in that information that was built during this time. So next up we got Jackie Robinson, and again, like I said, I'm not trying to, I can't say it enough on here, and that's probably the last time that I say it, but you can't get all of these guys' stats and all their contributions that they did into one podcast just by themselves or with the 4 of them on there. And so I'm doing my best. I'm going to do the best I can to just give an overview just so there is extra knowledge there. So Jackie Robinson was born January 31st, 1919 in Cairo, Georgia. Robinson would grow up in Pasadena, California. His older brother, Mac, won a silver medal in the 1936 Summer Olympics. And then Jackie started on the football team as a QB. He was on the basketball team as a guard. He was on the baseball team as a catcher and shortstop. He was also played track and tennis. In 1936, he won a singles championship in the Pacific Coast Negro Tennis Tournament, and he also earned a place on the Pomona Baseball Tournament All-Star Team with Ted Williams and Bob Lemon. He went to Pasadena Junior College after high school, where he was an outstanding athlete and in basketball, football, track, and baseball. After a year, he went to After he went to Pasadena Junior College, he went on to go to UCLA, where he became the first athlete to varsity letter in 4 sports there. And then after UCLA, he joined the military, where he served from 42 to 44, and then he was honorably discharged. He wrote a letter in 1944 for a tryout with the Kansas City Monarchs and did not receive anything in response, which led to him becoming the athletic director at Samuel Hudson in Austin, Texas. He got that job because a pastor friend of his and his future wife, who had actually was the president of the school, so he offered him the job down there. So Jackie was AD while he was the AD. The Kansas City Monarchs offering him a contract in 1945 for $400 a month. He would go on that year and hit .387 with 5 home runs, 13 stolen bases, and made the 45 All-Star team. He would also pursue major league interest during this time, and even though there were no black athletes that had ever played in the big leagues since Moses Fleetwood Walker in 1884. And also, side note, Moses Fleetwood Walker played for the Toledo Blue Stockings of the American Association, and Walker would also be the last player to play in the International League until Jackie Robinson. I mean, Moses Fleetwood Walker is one of those guys that we just need to talk about in part 3, and so we'll talk about more of him at that time as well. Jackie Robinson did have a tryout that was held by the Boston Red Sox that included other African American players, but it was just a farce. At the time, they were really trying to push integration, and the Boston Red Sox, for some reason, were totally against it. But if you listen to Bill Russell, he actually faced a lot of racial issues in Boston as a player, and he was one of the star players on the Celtics in the 60s. And then the Red Sox wouldn't even get their first African-American player on the team until 1957. They were actually the last team to have a team. It was either 57 or 59. But this gave, but the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time had more interest with the idea, and I put that in quotes because to me, it's not an idea of whether or not we should have African American players on the team. It's why don't we? And I know and I understand back then it was Jim Crow laws and things, but it still doesn't make any sense to me that we're keeping half of the half or a good chunk of the population from playing a sport that is, and then we're lifting up these white players that didn't that only played against themselves and probably wasn't even playing against the best competition at the time. So the Dodgers have this idea, obviously, to have a team. So they compiled a list. Branch Rickey started a list, and it started to interview players in 1945. So Branch Rickey interviewed Jackie Robinson for 3 hours, and at the end of it, he agreed to pay him $600 a month. This was so, and then there was no compensation, since Jackie was playing with the Monarchs at the time. Branch Rickey didn't even give the Monarchs compensation for Jackie Robinson joining the Dodgers at that time either, because he felt that since there wasn't a clause in their contract, they were all free agents. And again, if you felt they were free agents, then why weren't we signing them before this? So this all took place, and then there was some time of just keeping it quiet. And then it was announced on October 23rd, 1945, Jackie Robinson would play the 46th season with the Montreal Royals of the International League. So after this was announced, Jackson was barnstorming with the Kansas City Royals of the California League, and he also toured South America in another barnstorming tour as well. And Jackie's signing didn't come without some controversy, as he was not as some of the African American players in the Negro Leagues felt he wasn't even the best player at the time. Larry Doby, who played with Cleveland Indians who would go on to play with the Cleveland Indians and integrate the American League that same year as Jackie did, said the best player at the time was Josh Gibson. So Jackie was having backlash in the African American community or the baseball community of this, and then also the Dodgers are obviously getting backlash because, oh my gosh, we have an African American player on a baseball team full of whites. That shouldn't be a thing, I guess. I don't know. But Jackie would play spring training with the Montreal Royals in 1946. And since this was the 40s and the Royal spring training was in segregated Florida, he was not allowed to stay in the hotel with white players. Jackie ended up staying with Joe and probably murdering her name, Dufresne Harris, who then became friends of Jackie Robinson and his wife as well, and got them involved in the doing civil rights activism. Then you have Clay Hopper, who was the manager of the Royals at the time, and he felt it was beneath him or some BS to have to coach Jackie Robinson and asked Branch Rickey to be reassigned, but Branch Rickey told him no. So it was also the spring training. It was also the spring training that Jackie was moved from shortstop to second base. He had been a shortstop a majority of his career in the Negro Leagues, even though he just played one season. And also growing up, as a kid, he played high school shortstop, and also in college he played shortstop at UCLA and Pasadena Junior College. So then he was moved to second to have that shorter throw. So the hate and name calling Jackie endured in 46 and 47 was unbelievable. And in fact, like I said, Jackie Robinson deserves his own podcast, but we have Jackie Robinson Day coming up on April 15th. So we'll definitely do a podcast episode for him on that day. Jackie would go on to play his entire major league career in Brooklyn from 47 to 56, where he'd play second base and first. He had a career average of .313, an on-base percentage of .410, slugging percentage of .477. He had 200 stolen bases. He had 761 RBIs. He had 141 dingers. He had 1,563 career hits, 286 of those being doubles and 55 being triples. He had a career WAR of 63.8, and his defensive WAR was 10.6. He played in 6 World Series with Brooklyn, finally winning one in 55. And he appeared in 6 All-Star games. He won Rookie of the Year in 47 and the 49 MVP. So that's a little bit about Jackie Robinson. And again, a good movie to watch about Jackie Robinson is his movie with Chadwick Boseman. That's a really good movie. 42. So next up we have Martiín Dihigo. He was born May 25th in 1905 in Cuba. Martiín dropped out of school in the 6th grade to go to work, and he started to play baseball. At age 16, he began professional baseball playing winter ball in Cuba for Havana in the Cuban League. Cuban baseball facing financial issues and already having plenty of established players. Martiín was not part of their plan going forward at the time. So Havana did not re-sign Martiín. Instead, he went to the U.S. in 1923 with part-time New Yorker and Cuban baseball promoter Alejandro Pompez to play for the Cuban Stars at the time the Cuban Stars East at the time, in the newly formed Eastern Color League. Again, this is one of the major leagues for Negro leagues that Major League Baseball classifies as a major league. In June, Dihigo started at second base, and then he would appear in 33 games. He would bat .208. He had an on-base percentage of .246 and a slugging percentage of .283 that first year. He would go on to play for the Stars from 23 to 27, appearing in 221 games during this time. He had a .298 batting average, a .362 on-base percentage, and a .489 slugging percentage. He had 32 dingers, 156 RBIs, 24 stolen bases. He had 246 hits, 36 doubles, and 13 triples, and he would lead the ECL in homers 2 seasons and batting average in 1 year, and for 1 season. In 1928, he joined the Homestead Grays, but since they weren't affiliated with a league that year, no stats are provided. Obviously, the Homestead Grays ended up being with the second incarnation of the Negro Leagues baseball that took place from the mid-30s till the 1960s. But in 1928, they weren't part of the Negro Leagues at all and had no affiliation whatsoever. So, again, no stats are provided because we can't find research for it or anything like that. So in 1929, he played for the Hilldale Club of the American Negro League. He would play shortstop, and he would hit 18 dingers that year with 79 RBIs, 14 doubles, 4 triples. He batted .332. He had an on-base percentage of .448, and he had a .613 slugging percentage. He would lead the league in walks with 56 that year. And from 1930 to 1934, he would go play for the Cuban Stars. So, and again, not affiliated with an approved Major League Baseball league for 1 year, and then play in Venezuela, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico before playing again in the U.S. in 1935 for the Cuban Stars. He would be player manager, hitting .326 that year with the Cuban Stars. He would have a .409 on-base percentage and a .565 slugging percentage. He had 7 dingers, 34 RBIs, 47 hits, and then so he would have 12 doubles and a triple that year as well. And then 36, he played with the Cuban Stars again as a player manager. And he would bat .299, have an on-base percentage of .407, slugging percentage of .591, 9 home runs, 33 RBIs, 38 hits, 8 doubles, a triple, but like all stats, there are errors throughout. Definitely his career. And these are, like I said, all of these are off baseballreference.com. 1937, he played in the Dominican Republic and also Mexico. And then 38 to 43, he played in Mexico and Cuba. And then 1943 to 1950, he played in Cuba, Mexico. And 45, he played with the New York Cubas at the age of 40. Where he would bat .306, .393, .449. He had 2 dingers and 7 RBIs in 17 games. Martiín not only hit, but he also was a pitcher as well. So he was basically a two-way player. Not basically, he was a two-way player. He would play shortstop, first base, outfield in his career. And like I said, he was a pitcher as well. And as a pitcher, in his 9 recorded seasons, he would go 27-19. He had a 3.34 ERA, started 42 games, and pitched in 60 games. He had 34 complete games overall with 1 shutout and 2 saves. He had a 5.5 strikeouts per 9, and he had a 2.07 strikeouts per walk ratio. He had a 10.2 WAR as a pitcher and a 12.6 WAR as a hitter. His stats are limited for MLB records, and not all are accounted for per the times with players not in Major League Baseball's designated leagues. But if you take all the stats Martiín had from playing everywhere from Cuba to the U.S. to the DR to Mexico that we can find, he compiled a .302 batting average. He had 130 career dingers. He had 11 seasons of double digits home run totals. And then as a pitcher, he would go 252 and 132. So, 130 dingers on 11 seasons of home run totals. As a pitcher, he was 252 and 132. And then Martiín is inducted into Cooperstown. He's also inducted into the Cuban Baseball Hall of Fame, the Mexican Baseball Hall of Fame, the Dominican Republic Baseball Hall of Fame, and the Venezuelan Hall of Fame as well. Hall of Famer Johnny Mize said he is the only guy he ever saw that could play all 9 positions, manage, run, and switch hit. He was a two-time Negro League All-Star and a 4-time Cuban League MVP, and he was also an ECL batting champ as well. So, again, he's getting... Again, all these guys get praise from white players because they could see it. But I think so. But they just apparently didn't act, they really didn't have the activism to get them to play in the same league as them, obviously. And Johnny Mize is a Hall of Famer, and he saw how well Martiín played. So, and then last on today's episode, but certainly not least, is going to be John Donaldson. John Donaldson has 5 years of recorded stats of baseball, all from the Kansas City Monarchs from 1920 to 1924. And during this 5-year span, he played in 211 games, pitching in 22 games. He would bat .296, .341, and .382. He had 6 career dingers, 118 RBIs with only 6 dingers. Jeez. He had 29 stolen bases. He had 242 career hits. He had 32 doubles, and he had 10 triples. His 22 games pitching was 6-9 with a 4.14 ERA. He started 13 of those games and had 9 complete games, which accounted for 1 shutout. He also had 2 saves. He had 69 Ks in that span. He had a 4.5 strikeouts per 9, and a 1.92 Ks to walk ratio. But the 5 years don't tell the whole story of him as a player. He would go on to play for over 30 years. So researchers discovered 718 games in which Donaldson pitched in. And they figure he had 424 wins, 169 losses, 15 ties. They figured that he notched 5,221 strikeouts. He had a 1.37 ERA. He had 86 shutouts, 296 complete games for his career over those 30 years. He could be credited with 14 no-hitters, 2 perfect games, and dozens of one-hitters. They found he had 2 30K games, 11 games of 25 plus, 30 games with 20 plus strikeouts, 109 with 15 plus strikeouts. He had 203 games of 10 plus strikeouts. Meanwhile, he also batted .334. But again, the reason for these stats, I can't say it enough, was because he was a barnstormer for 2 decades. And he was a barnstormer 2 decades before Satchel Paige was even a barnstormer. Like Satchel Paige stated, he got his acumen and style from John Donaldson. And John Donaldson started in 1908 with his career, and it didn't, like I said, it didn't end until 1941. Seriously, like he was playing seriously, he was playing serious ball up until 1941, and then he still played in 1949 in less serious games. So where did Donaldson do all his barnstormings, you may ask? Well, he started in Missouri with the Missouri Black Tigers, and then he would go on to play with the Hanaka Blues. He then pitched for the Tennessee Cats. They would crisscross the upper Midwest. In 1912, he started playing for All Nation, which was a barnstorming team out of Des Moines, and he would make $150 a month and played they had a female player named Carrie Nation, and they had several players of other races on the team as well. And All Nations played in the Midwest and upper Midwest. And while being a member of the All Nations team, he also pitched in KC, Palm Beach, Florida, LA, Indianapolis, Brooklyn, Detroit, and Chicago. He would play all year long, hence the reason why he has so many strikeouts and so many games pitched that they could just find. And then at one point, 1920 to 1923, he played for the Monarchs and the All Nation team at the same time. And then Donaldson would manage the All Nation team, and he would bring players up to the Kansas City Monarchs with him to play. Donaldson is also credited with suggesting the name Monarchs for the KC nickname when they created the team. And when KC wasn't playing, Donaldson was out barnstorming in cities where the KKK was very present in rural Midwest, Iowa, Midwest Minnesota, and also North and South Dakota. Donaldson played against major league players while barnstorming during this time, and he was the main player most wanted to see. So he wasn't just out there being celebrated by by going out there and putting on a show he would a circus guy. No, actually people would come, white fans would come out and want to see the amazing John Donaldson. So Donaldson became the first full-time African American talent scout with the big leagues when he was with the White Sox as well. Hold on. Then he would, like I said, he would become a talent scout for the White Sox. He pursued Willie Mays and Ernie Banks for the team. He is credited with signing Bob Boyd and Sam Hairston for the White Sox. Unfortunately, John Donaldson is not in the Hall of Fame. failing to make the 75% in 2006 by the pre-Negro League candidates. And then he failed to get the 12 votes needed in 2021 for the Early Days Committee. And it's a real shame. As researchers continue to put together a career that lasted over 30 years, I hope they can work with the Hall of Fame to get John Donaldson into it. He belongs. It's called the Baseball Hall of Fame, which to me encompasses all of baseball and not just Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, African American players are at a disadvantage to get in due to poor record keeping, unsanctioned leagues and teams, along with having to barnstorm and play for and against semi-pro teams to make a living. This was a lot. And this is just 4 players. We still have 4 more to go. And we have to discuss on how, we have to talk about how many different leagues there were. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to just squeeze this into 3 episodes. It might turn into 4. And that's okay with me because I have fun researching this. And I hope you guys have fun in listening to it. So, and I really hope that after you listen to this and after you listen to the, next 2 or 3 episodes, that you really just take the time and go venture out and do your own research as well and just start looking at the players that played. In 2003, I had a chance to go through the Negro League Baseball Hall of Fame Baseball Museum down in Kansas City, and it's probably one of the most amazing museums I've been in. And I'm probably going to hit it up again this summer as well. So thank you as always for listening. I will catch you on the next episode of One Guy with a Mic, Dingers and Dunks, where, we're going to bring 4 more legends to life. All right. Buck O'Neil, Hilton Smith, Hank Thompson, and Rube Foster. So please make sure to hit that follow button. Make sure to ring the bell so that way you're notified when the next one drops. And also make sure to download the episode for me too as well, because that's how we get credit for the listeners on the show. So I appreciate every single one of you, and I will definitely see you guys next time.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
The Pigskin Tales podcast is all about the lesser-known pro football players. Yes, there are stories about the ones we know, like Brad Tarkenton and Harold Red Grange. But have you ever heard of Ernie Nevers? How about Dave Osborne or even Grady Alderman? These men created their own path to the NFL. How did they do it? Listen to the Pigskin Tales podcast, now streaming on your favorite music platform. Go to pigskintales.com.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.